All right, welcome in Pucks with Haggs, episode 2. Full episode 2. Yep, you did it, Joe. You made it to 2, buddy.
Big success.
He's still here. Joe Haggerty from Boston Hockey Now, of course, the host of this podcast. Ty Anderson, 98.5 The Sports Hub, hockey scribe. Not just hockey, he does it all. We're talking Bruins. We're entering Game 5. Bruins have a commanding 3-1 series lead, but there's a lot to talk about both from this series and if we will allow ourselves to peek ahead just a little bit, that's fine too. Players can't do it. Media can do whatever they want, right? So we're fine. We want to remind you first off that this podcast is powered by our exclusive wagering partner, FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Sign up quick. You're running out of time to take advantage of a $200 in bonus bets when you make a $5 real money wager. All you have to do is deposit 10, get 200, go to fanduel.com/Boston. Joe, let's start with you. Tuesday, Bruins practiced. They have the benefit of an extra off day heading into Game 5. First time this series that they've had that extra day, which is good. They're trying to get healthy. And Jim Montgomery pointed towards Game 5 as, I think we'll see Bergie then. And all signs seem to point to him playing. He practiced with the team. He'd only been skating on his own. It's the first time he practiced with the team on Tuesday. And he spoke. And usually players talk to the media. That usually means they're pretty good to go. Sounds like all signs are pointing to him playing. How did he look? How did he sound? What's the general vibe surrounding Bergie right now?
Yeah. And by the way, when you have a 3-1 lead in a series, I think it's a rule that you have to write it as a commanding lead every single time you speak or write it. But I think I've written commanding at least 4 or 5 times in the last 2 days. But yes, I was there today. Bergeron practiced, no limitations. Full practice jersey he was wearing. And when it was over, leading the stretch, and then he was going around hugging, high-fiving everybody, and it looked celebratory, like, welcome back, you're coming back into the family, you're coming back into the lineup. It had that kind of vibe and feel to it when he was going around and chatting with everybody and sort of, it was kind of a welcome back thing. And then when he talked to him afterwards, he sounded very confident that he doesn't foresee any setbacks, he doesn't see any issues coming, and that he's pretty sure he's going to be able to play in Game 5. So there was zero hesitation, zero question in his eyes and his voice and the things that he said. And the actions on the ice of him and his teammates, I would say every single sign points towards him playing, and that's great news. That there's a little bit of me that questions, like, if there's something physical with him, maybe, and you have a chance to close out the Panthers in Game 5 and you're up 3-1, do you continue to rest him and, use the extra days off you're probably going to get if you close out the Panthers?
Right.
And then, use that time to focus on the second round opponent. But there's another side of that coin where you want to get him some game action before you might face a better opponent in the second round, and this allows him to do it. And everybody seemed pretty confident that he was healthy. So, I don't think there's going to be a lot of controversy about Bergeron being back in this game.
Same thing to you, Ty. He can play. Should he play?
I think so. I think momentum is such a finicky thing in the postseason. You see it. A team wins one game, now all of a sudden they get confidence. They're feeling good about themselves, and I think this Florida team, they're not a great team, but I think that they're a team that feeds off energy, feeds off momentum. And if you open the door a little bit, does that reinvigorate, Matthew Tkachuk, Carter Verhaeghe? I think this has been a really bad series for Alexander Barkov. Does that get him going? A matchup against Bergeron, if they win Game 5 and he has a good game. Okay, well now if he's activated, that's a big development for them. Now I think this Florida team is overmatched, but you don't want to give them life. You don't want to give them energy. And I think seeing number 37 lead the Bruins out, before Game 5 in a hostile environment for them, I think that's going to be a demoralizing shot off the jump for the Panthers. And I think that's why the Bruins want to do this so badly. Just want to get him in there, beyond the obvious of what we're talking about, where he's an incredible player and, you want him to get game action before the second round. Like, I think there's a mental component to having him out there as well that the Bruins looking for.
Well, there definitely is. There's no question about it. And they're obviously going to be a better team with him out there, and everybody sort of slots back into where they're supposed to go. And to your argument, Ekblad supposedly coming back for the Panthers and playing in Game 5 really is a game changer for them too. I think they missed him big time in Game 4. There was no question about it. So you are going to face a better, desperate Florida team, so you want all guns on hand. But, how long has it been since Bergeron's played now? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 days? It's been a while. So you got to wonder how much he's going to even be able to impact or be effective in that game. I say that, though, and he's the legendary guy that will miss like 2 weeks and come in and score 2 or 3 goals and have this amazing game that everybody's going to talk about. So, that'll probably end up being the case when he does suit up and play.
But you asked this. I know you asked Bergie this near the end of his press availability today, Joe.
Yep.
Looking back on Montreal,
I opened the door to the Montreal game.
Yeah,
I did.
Kind of, sort of. Is there some regret? And I mean, he's a pro, and he did.
Yep.
He just kind of danced around it a little bit. So it doesn't matter. But you have to know they're looking back at it like, yeah, maybe shouldn't have done it. So all of the reasons you guys put forth on why he should play, momentum, put this team down, get him some actual game action, all of these things make perfect sense. But can you live with yourself if he goes out there, re-aggravates something, and you're dealing with the same exact thing in another series? And again, that's always a risk. It's hockey. These are big boys. There's always a risk that they can get hurt. But if there's a chance you could possibly sneak it by and know that 5-6 days from now, I got no worry with anything that's going on that it's going to re-aggravate or do anything that's going to set him back further, do you consider it? If you're Montgomery, do you consider getting the clearance and saying, I'm rolling the dice?
I think there's if there was a reasonably high risk or any sort of tangible risk that he was going to aggravate it and, they felt that was a chance, I don't know that he would be playing, just given the situation of where they're up in the series. And they do obviously respect the Panthers, who had them on the run in Game 2 in their own building, no question about it. But, I feel like if the risk or the worry was high that it was going to, he's going to go right back out of the lineup, that he would not be in there and he would not be playing. I mean, it's kind of 0 to 60 for him to go from sitting home skating by himself to all of a sudden practice one day and then in the lineup the next, for the playoffs. It's awfully quick. And that says to me that they're confident that whatever this was, he's kind of, he's cleared the hurdle. He's kind of left it behind him to a large degree, and there's not a high risk of aggravation.
But look at like Hall and Foligno, Ty, just in terms of their timetable and regular season injury timetable. You skate on your own for a little bit, then you practice a few days red contact and then a few days normal before you come back. It's a pretty quick ramp up.
It definitely is. And what I will say, though, is that Bergeron stayed home working with the same trainers and the staffers that got Marchand back early, got McAvoy back early, got Grzelcyk back early. So I think that they have a plan in place there that they want to go with. And to the concerns about re-aggravation, what I will say is my feeling on it is if he re-aggravates it tomorrow night, the odds are he would re-aggravate it in Game 1 against Toronto. So I feel like it really might not matter. I don't want a guy going 13 games without... Yeah, I think it's going to be Toronto. I think Tampa looks tired, man. I can't.
Well, the Bruins series is not over, even though they're up 3-1 against the Florida Panthers, who have looked rough the last few games that they've played. But let's bury the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are done. Although I agree with you. I mean, I'm giving up 3 goals in the third period last night. I was like, that's a bad look from Tampa. They look tired.
We're not even going to air this first portion of the podcast. We're just doing it because we feel we have to. We're just doing a Leafs preview. But yeah.
No, but I do think that there's, and I think it's important to note too that all 3 parties involved, I'll say, Bergeron himself, Montgomery, and the training staff, they all have a say in how this is going, when he's returning, when he's coming back in the lineup. So if he feels good to go, they've trusted their players, I think, for the most part all year long, and you're going to abandon that in Game 5 with your most important player, your team captain. That'd be a bit of a unusual look, I think, from the Bruins in terms of how they've operated year to date. So I think you do give them, the go here, and you hope that, listen, if it's a blowout, you don't play him 18 minutes. Play him 13, 14 minutes, ease up a little bit. So you just want to get a big lead, get him feeling good about his game, and then say, enjoy the third period with your 3 shifts and get out of here okay.
I agree. He's got to play, and I think it's right. But it's always going to be in the back of your mind after what happened in Montreal. Now, Joe saw this here, and I'll ask you first, Ty. Some goofy stuff going on at practice today in terms of the lines. And again, just some of these. Bergeron was back centering what's presumably line 1, but with Pasternak and Bertuzzi flanking him. Marchand was on a line with Coyle and Foligno. Halzaka, DeBrusk on the third with Lauko, Nosek Hathaway there. So that's weird. Montgomery was asked about it. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you do when you're down 3-1 or panicky sort of stuff if you were to enter the game that way. Montgomery said in his availability today, I'm just trying some stuff. I know what these guys look like together. Just want to try. But if you're thinking about it, if you're trying it today, you think he's going to try to do something? How much of this might be trying to get Pastrnak going in some way? And maybe that's something that they think is key here. Like, what did you think of the line rushes that they went out with today? And you think that they might do any of that?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to go with Bergeron between Bertuzzi and Pastrnak, if only because that winger combo is not very good defensively. We've seen them get hemmed in their zone, both in Boston and down in Sunrise. So you look at it from that point of view, maybe they're looking at that and saying, this is a line that we can compete in all three zones versus having to shelter them if it's Bergeron between them. You know, I think there may be an element there, but I also think that Coyle and Marchand have something going on right now. And maybe you're a little reluctant to pull away from that, you know, when you're getting those kind of contributions. So I do expect that we are going to see Bergeron and Marchand reunited probably early in the first period or right off the jump. But I don't mind tinkering in terms of figuring out if you can maybe make a little bit of an adjustment if you do have to put the lines in a blender in-game, mid-game. I mean, listen, when they went down there for Game 3 and they had those crazy lines, the first thought I had was, well, this is why they were tinkering amid an historic season, you know, where they were winning 65 games. It was like, you never know when you're going to need to go to something else. And, you know, maybe that's how they look at Game 5 here.
And I think Bergeron being out kind of forced Montgomery to put the lines in a blender to a degree and change things around and give different looks to different combos playing together. And I think that's a good thing. Like, you can always go with the old standbys of what we saw most of the regular season, you know, if it's not working. And those guys have instant chemistry and they played together for long stretches and had unparalleled success. So you have that to fall back on. Why not try things, especially if you're up 3-1 in a series? I think that's the time you can, you know, look at some different things. But I think part of the priority, and to your point, Zannis, is as much as you like some of the other combos that are working together after he's put all these people together, I think Bertuzzi and Pastrnak are dynamite together.
Yeah.
You know, I think Bertuzzi has shown a real knack and playmaking ability to set up Pastrnak, and he's really looking for him at spots where Pastrnak can score. And when they've been on the ice together, they've looked extremely good. And I think he also, Bertuzzi, adds a similar Marchand element of, if those guys, Bergeron and Pastrnak, are shooting the puck, Bertuzzi's going to be at the net front, and he's going to be crashing the net, and he has an ability to get there and get rebounds and loose pucks when those guys are shooting pucks. And we all know, you know, Pastrnak shoots pucks like nobody else in the NHL. He did during the regular season, had over 400 shots. But I think a lot of it is to get Pastrnak going. I think it's no question about it.
Yep.
It's been a bit of a slow series for him. I think the playoffs in general at times are challenging to Pastrnak because it gets so physical and because he starts to get banged up because he's such a target and they go after him. And, you know, it was good to see him break through and score, and maybe he developed some confidence from that when they were down in Florida. But I think there is an element of let's get Pastrnak going, and I think that's key to the Bruins' success. And they know at some points they're going to need him to get hot, and it clearly has not happened to this point in the Florida series.
Yeah, I think that you need to get Pastrnak going. And what I liked was Game 3 was 13 shot attempts. Game 4, it wasn't the same kind of rate. And now, you know, 13 shot attempts per game, I don't know how common that's going to be for anybody this time of year. But, you know, I think that what you're seeing a little bit with Pastrnak is that, you know, he needs to be scoring. But also, what I've liked from him, though, is that I feel like this year more than ever, he is taking more contact to make plays through the neutral zone. You're seeing him kind of make that extra pass, you know, to get the puck over into the attacking zone and absorbing the punishment. It's a matter of, you know, managing his body through that punishment, making sure he's upright, making sure he's still available at 100% or close to it. Because if he's not, this team is going to have a hard time winning a Stanley Cup because he's such a dynamic scoring threat.
What's amazing, too, just for those of us who've either covered or watched this team, past iterations of it over the years, and seen how you take the certain Bruins out of the games. It is the physicality with the guys like Marchand, Bergeron. And again, these guys aren't shying away from contact, but they're smaller guys. They're more finesse sort of guys. They're not afraid to get dirty, but you can bang them up. The difference here is you've got a series in which Pastrnak is struggling. You haven't had Bergeron at all. You haven't had David Krejci for the last couple of games. And it still hasn't been a problem because of the efforts of Coyle, Charlie Coyle, Taylor Hall, and even Jake DeBrusk, the level of depth that you're getting throughout the rest of these lines. And it was interesting because Coyle was clearly and far and away the best forward through the first 3 games of the series, and then Taylor Hall entered the chat. And you saw MVP level Taylor Hall playing in Game 4. If you're getting that and you get anywhere close to health, just that reminder. I think there was a panic after Game 2, like, oh no, is this the same thing where they're gonna get beat up by a physical heavy team and taken out of their game and just go quietly into the night? And then in games 3 and 4, you kind of got reminded of like, oh no, they've got guys everywhere, and these guys are showing up right now.
I don't want to argue with you, Zannis, but
come on, argue with me.
I would say that Taylor Hall has been probably their best forward, maybe 1-2 as far as forwards go in this entire series. Like going back to Game 1, he was like, I think their best forward in Game 1. Yep. Set up Trent Frederick twice for golden scoring chances where Frederick couldn't pull the trigger, but was using his speed to get 2-on-1s, odd man rushes, and has continually and started as a third line guy that was not getting a lot of minutes, that was not on either of the power play units. Really was Jim Montgomery was talking about him like just doing his role and playing his role, which was fairly small for a guy of his stature, of his resume, like all that stuff. And I think progressively he's continued to get more impactful and better and better and better as this series has gone on. And he started from a good place in Game 1. And to be able to do all that he's done while only playing like 3 games towards the end of the regular season after missing all that time, with an injury, I think has been A, remarkable, and B, goes back to what we've talked about time and time again with this team, which is the depth and how overwhelming their depth is for other teams. You have a former Hart Trophy winner, a guy that has his talent level, even if he's sometimes erratic now with the way he shows it, but to have a guy like with his talent level on the third line, that is a matchup nightmare for teams around the NHL that don't have the kind of depth that the Bruins do. You're used to in the playoffs being able to deploy your third defenseman pairing, one of your skill lines that can't defend against the third lines of the other teams and not get dinged up too badly defensively by them. And Taylor Hall is going to make you pay when you put the third pair D and you put these guys that are weaker defensively out there against him. And I think that's what we're seeing play out in this series against Florida. And it's, Taylor Hall, as much as anybody else, makes the depth go for the Boston Bruins.
No doubt. I mentioned Coyle because he had to jump up and do it on that first line is kind of, and the physical presence that they needed there. But yeah, go ahead, Ty.
No, I was going to say, I think that oftentimes in the postseason, mentality is a big part of it too. And I thought Taylor Hall had a really interesting quote between games 1 and 2 saying, I realize that I might not have a better chance at winning a Stanley Cup than this year. Like, that is not lost on me. He said that, and it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to play like it, right? And I think Taylor Hall is playing like he realizes this may be his best, maybe only shot at a Stanley Cup championship. And I think the way he's playing right now, it just speaks to a guy who understands what's on the line here, what's at stake here. And that is a huge development for the Bruins. It's not like, oh, more kicks at the can, oh, we'll get him next year. It's like, no, he is one of these guys who realizes this might be it for them.
And it's why he forced his way to Boston. And it's why he signed the extension, and it's why he made everything happen. The escape from Buffalo with Kurt Russell and the eye patch. Like, this is exactly why all this happened, was to get to this point. Like, he envisioned this years ago, not just like right now. He knew that going there was going to be part of his legacy, his career, to get a cup and to sort of cap off his career with a team that had that kind of talent where he didn't have to be the best player anymore. It's absolutely right. And I was there when he said that, Ty, and no question, you're thinking in your head, this is a guy that's going to sacrifice and play whatever role he has to play in order to help them win because he understands what's going on.
There's a lot of people in that boat, though, who have to feel like this is a real gift right now. You obviously know the people who've been there have that, let's do it for Bergie, this could be the last time that the band is together and all of that. But people coming in, Hall, newer to the organization, but another guy, obviously, like, Orlov or Bertuzzi, Tyler Bertuzzi, I've never played in the playoffs before, and I get to come here and just... oh my goodness, this is amazing, and who knows what the future holds, right? Where is he going to be? And Ty, you and I were talking off air a little bit about like how comfortable he gets to be in his role coming here and just getting to be the guy who he is without this enormous pressure of like, yeah, I just get to go out there and battle and play my game and be appreciated for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. Like when they acquired him, it was because Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno were hurt, right? And they had a sudden need. but it wasn't come in here and save the franchise. They were already the best team in hockey. They were already going to win the division. They were going to be the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. Like, we knew this, right? So Bertuzzi was coming in here as what you'd consider a massive bonus. Like, just, hey, go out and play your game, score some goals, put up some points. You haven't had a great year because of injuries and whatnot in Detroit, but clean slate, go out and do it. And I think what's really impressed me about Bertuzzi is that he just goes out and he plays the term is oversaid, I know, but greasy. I mean, he scores playoff type of goals, net front putaways, deflections through traffic. Like, that's what you need to win a Stanley Cup, right? And I think that, I think the league is trending towards star players carrying teams to championships, but every team has that guy who scores those kind of goals where you're like, he's the only guy who can do that, or he's going to do that consistently, and you're going to be better off for it. And I think the way Bertuzzi's playing right now, I mean, it's just a luxury on top of a luxury of a roster, and it's making a big difference, I think, for their team, because, you mentioned it, Pastrnak fighting through the physicality and his body taking some punishment here. Well, now he has Tyler Bertuzzi, so he doesn't have to score 2 goals a game for the Bruins to have a chance to win. So I think that's been huge for them.
Yeah, and I like Tyler Bertuzzi's game. I like what he brings. He's a play. All they did was rack up at the deadline, and we wrote about this ad nauseum at the time. They racked up playoff-style players. Tyler Bertuzzi, Dmitry Orlov, Garnet Hathaway, all of them play a heavy, gritty, greasy, grimy, whatever adjective you want to throw out their style.
A goblin game.
Yes, they are not clean. They are very dirty playoff-type players in a good way. But when you look at Bertuzzi, I think 2 things that one nags at me, or actually both of them kind of nag at me. One, the first round pick's always going to bother me, that they had to give up a first round pick, and I understood it was oh crap, these guys are injured, they may be injured seriously, we can't have this perfect season, and what we're trying to do here, going all in, blow up on us, so they had to give up the first round pick to get him as an insurance policy. For those injuries. I get that, but it still is they don't pick in the first or second round much for a long, long time. And I think that continues to pile up the gravity of the situation right now, and how important it is for them to win the Stanley Cup this season because of everything they've thrown into the can to do that. But the other part of it that when I watch Bertuzzi now is how willing are the Bruins going to be to jettison somebody that's part of their regular group to clear salary cap space to keep this guy? Because I think you could put him side by side with a lot of players on this team and say, I think I want to keep Tyler Bertuzzi because I like what he brings to the table and he's a great fit for the Boston Bruins. But in order to do that, they're going to have to do some salary cap maneuvering to get there, because a lot of these players that they've brought into the trade deadline they're all UFAs, and they're going to have a real hard time keeping one, never mind all 3. But I look at Bertuzzi and say this is the kind of guy that could stick with Boston for a while if they can figure out a way to make it happen.
All right, let's put our GM hats on and figure out a way to do it. First off, I do want to tell everyone listening right now once again about our sponsor, and that, of course, is FanDuel. You have a lot of things going on right now with the hockey playoffs, basketball playoffs, of course, and also the start of the Major League Baseball season. We're several weeks into it now, and in case you didn't know, Major League Baseball is the official partner of FanDuel. FanDuel is also the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. So if you want to take part in this, you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston. Bet on all your favorite sports, moneyline, point spreads, player props, more. App is super easy to use. Trust me, download it. The interface is great. Again, $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. FanDuel.com/Boston. Make every moment more. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Let's go back to the Bertuzzi thing, Ty. Make it happen. Keep him. This guy, honestly, has there ever been a guy brought in not only with the impact, and as you said, it's a luxury, and he's built for the playoffs, and he's built for the exact role that they have him in now. It's perfect. It's a perfect deadline acquisition. But he's also legit almost a perfect Bruin. It's hard to believe he hasn't played here his entire life. He fit right in. He kind of embodies all of that stuff that people like to say is Boston Bruins hockey. I can't imagine he wants to leave, but obviously if you can't pay him anything, he's going to have no choice. Is there anything you can do creatively to make it happen?
Yeah, I think there's one thing, it involves a player we just talked about, Taylor Hall, where if you looked at moving Taylor Hall, and he does have a limited no trade, so you have to kind of work with him to say, hey, where would you want to go if we were to make this happen, if that's possible. And then you also have Mike Riley, who's in Providence right now, has another year left on his contract. Could Taylor Hall be a sweetener for a team to take on Mike Riley, where you're not getting much of anything back, but you are clearing effectively $9 million in cap space between Taylor Hall and Mike Riley? So that may be the way you have to do it. You look at their back end, you got Matt Grzelcyk making, 3.8, 3.7, somewhere around there.
Carlo's the other.
You have Derek Forbort making 3. You have Mike Riley making 3. I think one of those guys plus Taylor Hall, that's the easiest way to get that done. And then you hope that Tyler Bertuzzi's making, maybe a little bit under $6 million a year, maybe a little bit under that Taylor Hall number. And then that's, maybe another player for you in terms of, a league minimum kind of guy on the bottom of your roster.
Well, you got Carlo coming in at the $5 million mark or so, right?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Carlo also coming in around $5 million. Is it someone you could potentially look to clear?
Yeah. And the real kind of bummer of it all is that, and not really a bummer, it's just the cost of doing business, is that like a Bertuzzi type player is probably what you're going to lose because of the penalty you have to pay for Bergeron and Krejci being rolled over into next year for the bonus overages for their salaries and their contracts for this year. As much, it always bothered me that everybody, obviously they signed for less this year and to, be able to put together the best team that they could, and that's the right way to do it with 35-plus-year-old players. But it always sort of bothered me to hear people talking about, oh, what a bargain, so unselfish, they just want to win. And it's like, yeah, they were definitely unselfish about it, but the Bruins are going to have to pay the piper next year. Like, it's not that team-friendly when you're going to get slapped with a $5 million tab the following season. It's just, putting it off on a credit card until the following year, basically, where, they're going to, if they win the cup this year, who cares? And it's probably going to look like a much different team next year anyway. Where they're going to be more willing or more able to absorb a $5 million penalty that they're going to have to pay. But in reality, when you sort of break it down, that's Tyler Bertuzzi's the level of player it's going to cost you for them to have to pay this overage penalty on the cap next year.
Yeah, what I will say, though, Joe, about, the overages, and we all knew it was coming, right? We all knew this penalty was going to be coming. I think what I liked about it, and like is such a strong word in a situation which you're losing about $5 million in cap space, but they stayed true to the idea behind it, that they brought them in at low money deals and they added high impact players around the roster. If they did that and then brought in an Andre Kasha kind of move, right, or a Nick Ritchie kind of move, or a John Michael Lyles, I'd be like,
hey, you missed Nick Ritchie. Don't lie to me, Ty. You missed Nick Ritchie.
We missed the moon.
As I told you, John, do you know the story? Nick Ritchie is not a fan of Ty's work on Twitter with the images and the JPEGs or whatever.
Yeah, I made a meme where he was the moon, and it was supposed to be because his stock is going to the moon because he had a really good year on the net front, but I don't think he enjoyed it nearly as much as I did. Yeah, I don't know. But this was during like the Zoom era of Bruins availability, so you never had chances to talk to guys face to face. Because I feel like if we had that, I would have said, "No, that's a good thing. You're the moon. Your stock is going up, baby." But
the guy grew up on a horse farm. He wants nothing to do with any of us or memes or anything like that. He just wants to go raise his horses and be done with everybody.
He doesn't know what a meme is. But I think that to go all in. Go all in. Don't go all in, but then go halfway, there once you're in the season. So I liked what they did because they maximized it, right? Like if they fall short, it's not on management. It's on the players, right? The management's given them all the tools to win a championship. So it's on the players now. But what I loved about it is knowing the future was going to suck, but saying if we make the present worth it, no one's going to care about that, right? Like that took some guts, I think, from this front office to make that happen.
Yeah, how much of that, we just talked about it, but how, you think Bertuzzi happens that way if they felt they didn't owe it to those guys for taking those deals? Because as you mentioned, it was an all-in deadline.
No, I think that I was just going to point to when Ty was done talking about it, saying them giving up a first-round pick for Bertuzzi is the perfect example of that. Yeah. That's we're pot committed. We're doing everything we possibly can to check every box, dot every I, cross every T to make sure every sort of scenario, everything that could go wrong in the playoffs is addressed with an insurance policy or some kind of answer So we're not left short as far as players go. Come hell or high water, no matter how many injuries or attrition comes, we're going to have an answer for it. And, and I agree. Like, if you're going to do that and you're going to pay this massive penalty next year, you better make this year worth it. And if they win a cup, certainly I don't think the fans are going to cry too much about it. Some will, obviously. But I think most aren't going to cry much about it or care much about it because they're going to have the memory of this dream record-breaking regular season capped off with, if they win, a run to a Stanley Cup, and probably Patrice Bergeron pulling a Mark Recchi and saying, adios, I'm going out in style, I'm winning the cup and retiring at the end of it all. And it turns into this perfectly encapsulated season that everybody around the NHL is going to be envious of and remember forever.
Yeah, they don't hang banners for cap space. So go all in. I don't care. And listen, I think we're at the point.
Tell John Henry, yeah.
I think we're at the point where we're aware that the future of this team, it may get a little dark for a few years. You're right, that the accumulation of trading first-round picks, second-round picks, I think they're already in too deep to sort of course reverse on that, So yep. Add another one to the pot, whatever. It doesn't matter if you win a championship. Everyone makes peace with it. I don't think anyone in Tampa Bay is bemoaning the fact that they've traded first-round picks for all the guys they have when, they have those 2 Stanley Cup banners hanging at Amalie Arena. So I think that's the right way to look at it.
And the nature of the CBA now, when they agreed to the new CBA that they're working with, the nature of it was similar to the NBA. They wanted teams, or they were pushing teams via the rules that are in place, to have a couple of superstars, 2 3-star players that you're paying a crap ton of money, and then there's going to be no room for the middle class, the guys in the middle that you're paying $3, $4, $5 million to really add to the depth of your team, and you're backfilling with all these minimum contract, entry level young players that you're barely paying, and that's just what every team is going through. That the rules are in place now where you can't maintain for more than a year or two this super deep team with quality players from top to bottom. We saw it with the dismantling of the Tampa Bay Lightning and what has happened to them, and they're paying the price now, and the Bruins are in the same boat where they weren't going to be able to keep it together for that long either.
Yeah, I mean, this is a dream season, and you're right. It's for one purpose, and it's win it all, or again, is it not worth it if they don't win it all? I mean, that's the whole thing. It's still really hard, hockey being the sport with the greatest amount of variance, and it's just nothing is really guaranteed here. Is it worth it if it's completely dismantled starting next year and you have to go back to zero? I think yes. I mean, you got to take your shot, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think you have to take your shot, and I think the other part too is a dismantling. It feels strong, right? Because I think
it's not entirely. They have guys under contract. You've got Lindholm. You've got the defense. You've got the goaltending. Well, you're not going down to zero, right?
Looking at Zacha and the way he's playing center, there is hope for the center position too beyond this season. He's actually been pretty good. So it's even turned out, I think, to be sort of a better outlook than we thought at the beginning of the year, just based on the way he's looked.
Yeah, sorry, Ty, I jumped in.
No, but I agree. This roster is never going to be, in my opinion, with the core pieces they have between Lindholm, McAvoy, Pasternak. If you want to add, Swayman and Ullmark, because that's a really good tandem you have right there. Maybe the best in the league.
You're still okay. Yeah.
You're never going to be the Philadelphia Flyers. I don't think you'll be that bad. At the very worst, you're going to be a wild card team, and it's on you to figure out and identify players that you can throw in the mix there. Find the next Zacha, the guy who's underachiever in whatever city he's in. You bring him here. You hope he elevates his game. So I don't think that they're ever going to truly bottom out with this core that they've built, because I think it's just too good to do that.
Yeah. A couple other things I want to get to before we wrap it. I feel that if the Bruins were to have gone with Swayman, it would have happened already. I know it's still possible, but it really felt like they were leaning that way for Game 4, and then it didn't happen. I don't know what Ullmark's battling and how significant it is. I mean, there's times though after giving up a goal or after hitting the deck, he looks like me getting up off the couch at 7:30 on an NFL Sunday. After not having moved for 8 hours, something looks a little bit off. If you truly have faith in Swayman as a 1A guy, do you think they should have played him by now, and might they consider it for 5?
I would put him in for 5. I mean, I think I would. Obviously, I remember the exact play when Ullmark got up weird, and it seemed like something, funky had happened against Washington in that second last game of the regular season, and a couple minutes later he was leaving the game. And they just like Bergeron, they were talking about being precautionary and everything else, but clearly he's playing through a little something, as a lot of guys are at this time of year. But I think if I'm the Bruins, I'm up 3-1 in the series. I really have control of this, and something is going to have to go extremely sideways for it to reverse direction and for the Panthers to take over and win. Given that you're probably going to need both goalies at some point in these playoffs, and that Swayman has not played in, a week, 10 days now, where he hasn't seen game action, or like he came in.
You got to get him in, right?
At the very end.
If you're going to ever, you got to get him in somewhere,
yes,
right?
I think this is the perfect time to drop him in to a Game 5 situation to get him some playing time, especially if you can maximize Ullmark not going through the stress of playing in that game, sort of getting the extended rest, whatever it's going to be, waiting for the second-round opponent, and maybe try to heal him up and get him closer to 100%. I think there's a lot of benefit in a lot of different ways to putting Swayman into this game, while the Bruins also have full confidence that he's going to be every bit as good as Ullmark, or very close to it anyway, because he was that way the entire second half of the season. So, given all the information involved, if I'm running the Bruins, if I'm Don Sweeney, Jim Montgomery, if I'm goalie Bob, who clearly has the one and only voice on who actually plays in the net for the Boston Bruins, I would start Jeremy Swayman in Game 5.
Yeah, I would have gone Game 4. Once they didn't go Game 4, I'm thinking it's going to be Ullmark
I don't think
until
they
proven
will.
Otherwise.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's it for the playoffs, barring injury or Ullmark starts to have some bad games. I think you missed your shot.
Yeah, I don't think so. Why would you have missed your shot, though? Like, you're up 3-1 in the series.
Because now you want to wrap it up, and you don't want to mess around now. Yeah.
I understand what you guys are saying about, like, they should have done it then if they were going to do it. But at that point, it was still a 2-1 series, and it was still, very much, if you lose that game, it's dicey as to what's going to happen here. I think there was much more on the line in that Game 4 when you were potentially thinking about Swayman. I think this is the perfect opportunity to put him in because there is less on the line. And I think, given everything that we've seen to this point in the series, given the desperation that the Panthers are showing, where like they know this is slipping through their fingers. And I think they're trying everything they could, judging by the actions of what we saw at the end of Game 4. They're desperate to try to find anything they can to get the Bruins off their game and to throw them off of what they're doing right now, because they're dominating. And I think the Panthers know that they're cooked pretty much, and I don't see them coming back in the series. I really don't. And up 3-1 in the series, I think now is the perfect time to do it. I don't think Game 4 was the perfect time to do it. I think they were thinking about it for Game 4, but I think there was much more of a pressure situation, and good thing they went with Ullmark in that game, right? I think that was the game that does springboard him into, he's a proven playoff performer now. He's showing that he can dominate and be the guy he was in the regular season during the playoffs. I said this a couple days ago, but like that was Tim Thomas-esque, some of the things he was doing in that Game 4. Not only the first period when the Panthers were throwing everything but the kitchen sink at the Bruins and dominating, and he was holding it all back and keeping them in when the Panthers had them on the run. But, some of the save attempts he's trying to make. There's a couple times in this series where he's done the flying double pad stack saves where I don't think I'd ever seen that from him before. And, obviously going at it with Tkachuk towards the end of the game. And it was funny. I mentioned this in a video that I did for CLNS. Ullmark let it slip a couple weeks before the regular season was over that he was watching videos of the old playoff games from 2011 with Tim Thomas, and he was kind of fascinated with the way Thomas was playing and him getting into it with the Sedins and everything else. And I'm sure he was doing it as research to try to figure out like what it takes to win in the playoffs. And I think we're starting to see some of that in the postseason. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, between the massive saves and the fights, I mean, it's Tim Thomas reincarnated.
So we agree. He should have played in Game 4. Moving on. No, I'm just... well, honestly...
Yes, they made the right call in Game 4. Congrats to the Bruins.
What would have happened? Swayman should have played Game 4. We got it. No. What would have happened? What would have happened if the ref wasn't standing there between Ullmark and Tkachuk there? No, because the Bruins are saying some crazy shit after.
We would have seen a Ric Flair-esque selling of whatever Ullmark was going to do to Tkachuk when he hit.
He could beat up anybody.
Tkachuk was going to immediately go down like a ton of bricks and start writhing in pain.
Yeah,
trying to get Ullmark suspended for the rest of the series.
Yeah, what a clown performance, by the way. What an clown. Your team needs you to carry them like you have for the last 4 months, and you become a sideshow act all game long. Between that Hathaway cross-check that got him a penalty, and the Bruins scored in the power play, put him in a 2-0 hole, and then that nonsense in the third period. Tkachuk is an unbelievable player. That was an embarrassing performance, I think, from him.
I'm just looking forward to. Do they do anything, or you let him go? Like, do you let him be a knucklehead, or does somebody want to do something about it before it's over?
Well, I'm looking forward to Game 5 and the Bruins going up early in that game, which I think is going to happen, because I think the balance is coming due for Matthew Tkachuk and for Ryan Lomborg.
Things could end badly, though. Like, do you really want to do that? Like,
I think they might.
Don't you just want to get in, get out?
I think there's some angry feelings over some of that. Like, we were both there, Zannis. I think you were there too, Ty. Like, they were all pissed off about that trying to choke out Trent Frederick at the end of Game 2.
Yeah. Yes.
At the Garden. I think that's going to be answered for in this series. I don't think they're going to take a number and wait until next season.
No, 100%. And you know, McAvoy was in a pretty pissed off mood after Game 4. And, you know, McAvoy, I remember last year's series, I'm sure you do too, that once Svechnikov took out Lindholm, for the rest of the series, McAvoy was trying to put Svechnikov on the tracks. I can see McAvoy trying to line up a big hit on Tkachuk or Lomberg, you know, as retaliate. If they're not going to answer the bell that way, they'll make him do it another way. And I think that's where guys like 73 come into the mix.
He's gotten Tkachuk a couple times too, but yeah, I mean, he's been looking for it, I think, all series there, and I wouldn't be shocked, but I don't want it to. I don't think. Look, people want to satisfy their bloodlust, but you don't want it to devolve into something where you're taking cheap shots too, especially up like 5-1, 6-1, and on your way to the next round. But again, I get it. I wouldn't be shocked if something happens. Before we go, we do want to look briefly ahead into a potential round 2 matchup, which amazingly now looks like it's going to be Toronto, who had their Bergeron moment coming back from 3 goals down in the third, and win that game over the Lightning. Now they're up 3-1. They were a laughingstock after one game. Here we go again. Memes, sad Toronto fans, all of that stuff. And now they look like they're going to round 2 for the first time since
2004.
Yeah, 2004. Is this good? Is this the better matchup for the Bruins, or worse if they end up here?
I believe in sports as poetry, and the fact that the Bruins have been the absolute heartbreaker for the Toronto Maple Leafs for as long as we can remember, and now the Leafs will have the chance to do that to the Bruins in their perfect season and ruin it for them in the second round of the playoffs. If I were Bruins fans, I would be deathly afraid of that.
There's 2004 Sox-Yankee vibes here, right?
Yes.
Like, there's like, it's if the Toronto's gonna win, it's gonna be perfect. It's gonna be storybook exactly the way they wanted to and they've imagined to for all of this time.
It's gonna be them turning the tables on the Bruins and reversing what's been going on for as long as we can remember.
Yeah, there is that possibility. I listen, I was talking about the Leafs winning that series, a little while ago. I still need to see it. This team is they're known for gagging things away, and even if they get to round 2 against the Bruins, I think that the Bruins have matched up against them well this year. I think that one loss was the Mitchell Miller signing day. So you have that in the equation. The Bruins were not into that game.
That was a little bit of a weird day.
Yeah, just a little bit. You had all the captains saying, "We don't want this player." Always kind of a welcome to the organization, kid.
They asked me about it after they signed him. Right.
But I think that for me, it's still the same questions that I've always had with Toronto. Yeah. Is their defense strong enough, and is their goaltending good enough? And right now, Ilya Samsonov, I know the graphs and the stats say that he's had a great season. I see a very beatable goaltender when I watch Ilya Samsonov play. So I still think the edge has to go to the Bruins based on what we've seen in this series. And it could be a similar series where there's a lot of firepower up front, but the back end has question marks and the goaltending's not good enough. So what happens there? It's like I see both sides of it, but when it boils down to this, I am more afraid of Andrei Vasilevskiy than I am Ilya Samsonov. So that's how I look at that.
That's where I am on it too. That's the thing. The goaltending, I think, is a big difference maker here, and yeah, more holes there. I think the Vasilevskiy thing is what scares you most about Tampa. Plus, insane high-end talent on that team as well, and able to kind of score in bunches. But I think the goaltending's got to. I mean, that feels like it's going to be Toronto's undoing ultimately.
Yeah, I think
it definitely does. There are some things I like about Toronto, though. Ryan O'Reilly's the anti-Bergeron. He had Bergeron's number in a big way in the 2019 Stanley Cup Final. Noel Acciari coming back to bite the Boston Bruins after they let him go. Yep. He's been a very good factor for the Leafs in that series, too. And I just think eventually great players get it in the playoffs. And I think what we're starting to see is Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews starting to get it. And I think when that happens, that's when you need to start fearing a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I just think, like I said before, there's a poetry to sports. There really is. And you do see the tables get turned in these rivalries and these matchups. And it's not the nuts and bolts of the matchups in the series. It's just the general, I've seen this story before. I've seen the little brother that got the crap kicked out of him year after year after year in the rivalry. And then all of a sudden, when they have a chance to ruin the perfect season for the other team, they're able to do it and become the heartbreakers and turn the tables. And I feel like it's setting up for that. And it's not good.
Yeah, so there is that legit possibility too. Sorry to interrupt, John. There is the unknown of we don't know what Toronto's going to become once they get this monkey off their back.
Yep.
There's so much pressure on them that if once they win, there's we're built for anything now. There is that possibility as well.
If they get to the second round tie, they're going to start playing like players that are traded out of the Buffalo Sabres. When they play like they're freed from jail for the first time in 10 years.
Yeah.
Watch out.
Either that or Game 3, they hang a first-round banner, and they're just satisfied that they made it that far. And, start dropping confetti from the ceiling if they win one game.
Don't doubt those yahoos that are sitting outside the Air Canada Center watching on the big screen. They're capable of something stupid like that.
I don't know about those. But anyway, so Bruins, one more win, you're off and running. Who knows what's going to happen in that series, but Toronto's got control. That'll be fun. It's a fun series. It's a fun matchup no matter who you get there, but the Toronto is great theater. So from a fan perspective, anybody watching that'll be a really great second round matchup if it gets there. We're gonna wrap it. We're gonna say thanks to Ty Anderson from 98.5. Check out all of his stuff over there at 98.5.com. All of his Bruins coverage, of course. Joe Haggerty over at Boston Hockey Now. Make sure you check out everything Joe's got coming down the pike. Both guys will be covering Game 5 in person on Wednesday night. Wednesday? Yes.
Yep.
What day is it now?
Wednesday Thank you, Boston Celtics, for playing Game 5 tonight and giving the Bruins 2 days of rest.
Very nice. Wednesday night at the Garden. Of course, once again, the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Go to FanDuel.com/Boston. Take advantage of this promo deal. And again, I'm telling you, you are running out of time. Deposit 10, bet 5, 200 in bonus bets, yours when you go to FanDuel.com/Boston. This has been Pucks with Haggs. We will see you guys next time. Thanks for listening/watching.